who face eternity easily forget what a lifetime means, what an ending means.
You know it doesn't have to be this way.
No, Kunavine, it does. They need me.
Welcome back to End of Dragons Daily for our 4th round of daily discussion, speculation, hopefully excitement generation for the next expansion, End of Dragons. So I've got a few quick little housekeeping notes I want to give. Yesterday, you might have noticed, and just a couple of seconds ago, you might have noticed I do have a really cool little intro thing. In that first part, I said if anyone wants to make an intro or something fun. Well, somebody did. That's Buttersphere over on Discord. Created this cool little clip that's kind of an augmentation of ArenaNet's own, you know, End of Dragons logo with the water and stuff. I know a lot of you will have already alt-tabbed and treating this like a podcast, but here, look again, I'll replay it. So thank you very much to Buttersphere for that. And if anyone else wants to contribute creatively in any way, let me know. Honestly, it's been so cool to see people be so active around this series already. On that note, with the comments, I want you guys to know that I am reading them. Some of you have ended up getting these massive walls of text and you've reposted the same comment in the hopes that it will appear in the next part. I have no problem with that, and I do want you to know that even if it doesn't appear here, I'm reading and hopefully other people will be replying. Don't hesitate with that stuff. I think it's amazing. Another thing that I've been wanting to remind you guys about as these have gone along is what I think I'll do, because every day I'm now recording a little bit of my random Guild Wars stuff, you know, whether I'm in a strike mission or Drizzlewood or World vs. World or, you know, whatever coming in the future. I might have some fractals or dungeons or whatever. I'll probably start in-game in Guild throwing an actual message out and saying, hey guys, I'm going to be recording now, do you want to come? I mean, a lot of this stuff people could be playing with me. Obviously with World vs. World, you kind of got to be paired in the right area, but a lot of those other examples, people could come along, and I think that'd be really cool. That's actually a chance for you guys to appear in the footage for the, and I know it's kind of a bit of a background thing, but for those who are watching. So if you're in the guild, keep an eye out for that. I will be throwing that message out each day, and we'll see where it goes. If you're not in the guild at the moment, we are still recruiting people. We have 2 branches, one for EU, one for NA, and all you have to do really is send me a mail stating which region you're on, and also a little something for either guild decorations or giveaways or whatever. Usually some amount of linseed oil or ecto attached to the mail is enough. Whatever you feel is generous, and then the Spud Club can continue to do cool stuff. I'll put my account name down in the description or the comments or something so that you guys can do that. And also, if you go to our Discord, there's full instructions about that over there. All right, enough preamble. Let's jump on in. Now, here's an amazing comment from Yusu, which I have to highlight. It made me smile to see something that could have appeared on the original Guild Wars 2 Daily series. I mean, almost word for word, this could have appeared. And it doesn't matter that we're 8.5 years down the line from there. Check it out. UC says, PvP duels in PvE, as I mentioned that very briefly yesterday. Being able to send an invitation to a player for a duel, which makes a certain radius of area at the place you're located a duel arena when accepted. So, I mean, I don't really have too much to add to this. Yes, I do think there are a ton of ways they could do that system in Guild Wars 2. And this idea that, you know, you get some kind of circle around you and you're forced to fight within it. Maybe the circle slowly shrinks over time. It's kind of like how we see sudden death for some of the PvP formats. Yeah, that could work. The thing is, the devs have never done it on more of a philosophy-based thing. It's not that they don't have these ideas. And indeed, these ideas have been around for 8 years. Or even longer, hell, before the game even came out. It's just like they originally, at some point, maybe this will change one day, but the original idea really was, if you like that kind of being able to fight other people but also in a PvE-ish environment, that's really what World vs. World was about. And if you wanted properly balanced 1v1s and stuff, that's what PvP was supposed to be about, you know, the structured PvP. So there was just no place for it in PvE. The whole game was just to make it as friendly and cohesive as possible for people getting along. And so they never added it. It's not that they didn't have these ideas. But I love that you posted this, and it feels like I'm in a time loop in some ways. Next, we got Yellow Eat, who says, I'm really not sure about player housing. To me, it seems too much like the game in the game. Like, if I want to build a house, why wouldn't I just play Sims or something similar? However, I've never really played anything besides Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, and many people seem to love player housing in other MMOs, so there has to be some appeal to it. Would definitely not be the big selling point I'm looking for, but who knows, maybe I'd be convinced otherwise. Right, so yeah, there are some doubters out there, and for a long time I think I've been a doubter about it, because to me, it's not the most exciting idea. But a few games I've been playing this year really really opened my eyes to how well this would work, and specifically in the MMO. So you raised this idea that it's like a game within a game on the MMO. If you think about it, though, that argument can be made for a ton of different facets of this product, not just for Guild Wars 2, but all other MMOs, because these games are trying to hold you captive. They're trying to be lifestyle experiences. I mean, Guild Wars 2 at its heart, I think, is conflicted on that. In many ways, it's designed to just let people play it for a few months and then drop it until the next X-Pack. And in other ways, it knows that it needs to cling on to you. But most MMOs, they end up being so broad and having so many different ideas within them that could be considered a game within a game. But overall, it still works because ultimately, it's keeping people on that platform. And if you're on the platform, the MMO, then you're being social there, you're making it look active, and that therefore makes more people feel comfortable staying on the platform. So MMOs really should seek to do this. I don't think it's any problem to have a facet of the game that feels very different to, you know, the standard combat or the standard exploration or whatever else you're looking for. I think player housing fits perfectly. There are a lot of questions about its implementation, which some of your other comments we'll get to in a second. I think we can leap off from. But in terms of the benefits, I actually see two. Now, first of all, it's kind of the social stuff, which you mentioned here. You say, why not play The Sims? Well, think about the way that The Sims has developed as a franchise. It's gone more online. It's tried to have more of that social stuff because at the end of the day, especially in kind of sandboxy features and sandboxy games, the idea of showing off and sharing that stuff to other people and having other people explore your creation, that's what really compels a lot of us. And that's why housing systems, I think, work so well in MMOs and would be perfectly suited to Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2, a game that does have this staunchly casual base that is more interested in collecting shinies and playing fashion wars than raiding, a player housing system whereby they can, you know, go crazy with a whole new dimension of shinies, i.e. how they build their house, is perfect. So I think that it fits with this community really well. But then to the other side of the community, those of us who are like big completionists, we have, you know, vast collections of stuff that we've got in the game. We've been playing for years. We like to go for the hardcore goals. Players like me, generally, who have been in there for a long time and dedicated for a long time. I think that player housing can actually appeal to us too. Why? Because it can be an outlet for all the prestige and stuff we've collected, but currently have no way to display. I think that one of the biggest problems for Guild Wars 2 at the moment on the top end, and in the broader picture, I therefore don't think that it matters that much, but one of the bigger problems on the top end is there's a load of players that no longer want to make the new legendaries or buy the new stuff on the gem store because they already have legendaries for those weapon types and for those armor types and for that backpack. They already have the skins for their gathering stuff that they care about. They already have the glider skins that they care about. They already have the mount skins that they care about. And now ArenaNet's continuing to pump out Black Lion weapon collections, for example, and we're just not that interested in them anymore because we've got too much stuff and not enough ways to display them. And I've talked about this problem before in the past. It really, because once a player gets to that point, they're going to be logging out quite soon. If you're goal-oriented and you run out of compelling goals, that's it. That's the death knell for you playing the game. I've talked about this many times in the past. I've suggested, you know, the build template system, that there could be some kind of dynamic build template thing where it actually gives you different transmogs based on where you are in the world. Maybe you could set it up to automatically show off a cool snowy outfit while you're in Shiver Peak areas, but as soon as you walk to you know, desert areas, it's a different transmog. The idea of having a randomized feature on skins for your weapons, so every time you sheath and unsheath, it randomly picks a new skin, maybe from the full pool of stuff you have on the account, maybe a selected pool that you've gone for, and therefore you can have all your shiniest stuff and it's kind of random, a bit like we see with the finishers, and any number of other ideas. These would work, but I also think player housing would, and I kind of learned this in part from Fallout 76 and actually a Terraria playthrough I did this past summer. In Terraria, I built this cool house, and if you guys have played that game, you'll know you continually progress through new gear, and you kind of cast the old stuff away, even though it might have looked cool or been interesting. And I ended up really enjoying building item frames so that I could display on the walls of my Terraria house all the gear that I'd been building as I'd been progressing through. And another thing I really wanted to do as well, in Terraria you get the little pets, I wanted to be able to display those pets. Think about a Guild Wars 2 player housing feature in which you can properly display in weapon cabinets and glass cases or whatever, portraits along the walls or whatever, the various shiny things that you've got. Think about all the Black Lion collections. Imagine actually being able to display them in nice ways, in whatever order, however you like, along your walls. Think of that. That would give all of these skins and stuff that's currently sitting in the background on your account value. And it would mean that now when ArenaNet puts new stuff into the gem store, you might not be equipping it and wearing it on your actually active characters, but you could at least display them around your house, and you could do that for all your legendaries, maybe your legendary armor. You know, they've been talking about the legendary armory. I kind of like the idea that one of the reasons it's delayed and isn't being talked about anymore is because they realized they could just grandfather that concept in as a physical armory as a part of a housing system in End of Dragons or something. I think that stuff would be amazing. And God, the one that really excites me is the idea of mini pets. Imagine if you could display all your minis in your house in Guild Wars 2. So you got all these minis and currently you can only equip one. Well, when you go to your house, you can have a little area penned off where they're all running around and, you know, interacting with one another. A bit like collecting cats for the home instance or something. But now it's all your minis. Just a place to display all these incredible things that we've got. I think that would be very, very, very powerful. Again, for kind of a certain type of top-end player, which is really still a bit of a niche that is not Guild Wars 2's main problem, in my opinion. But it would be something great for player housing. So, to the original commenter, hopefully that gets you excited about why this could be really good for the game. At least that's what's on my mind. Nick writes in to say, the player housing idea bugs me because ArenaNet has gone halfway with it so many times. Between the literal home instance, Eye of the North, Sunspear Sanctuary, and guild halls, I feel like they keep attempting player housing but giving up part way. I really don't want another thing to waste my time on that. ArenaNet is going to stop developing immediately after releasing. So, I kind of have two comments to this. First of all, I completely understand a fear that ArenaNet would not give player housing enough time and work to really flourish, and it would be somewhat abandoned. They do have this track record, and in particular, the one, I think, point of comparison we can really make is guild halls. Guild halls still, to this day, have so much potential, and yes, they do add, you know, random little decorations in there every now and then, but really, there needs to be a deep look at them. Guild halls, like so many other features, really only started to scratch the surface of what could have been so beautiful. And I hate that I'm saying that out loud, because when you compare guild halls in Guild Wars 2 to Guild Wars 1, there's no contest. The sequel game has so much more happening. But, you know, they didn't keep going with it to the same extent that they went with it on its initial inception at Heart of Thorns. I get that fear. But also, I have to say, the Sunspear Sanctuary was not player housing. The Eye of the North is not player housing, and the home instance is, and I know that the name would mislead you into thinking the feature is designed to be one thing, is not really player housing either. I really don't like that you've used these as examples. Sunspear Sanctuary in particular, the devs had a really cool idea of a hub area for one Living World release, and that was all it was ever designed for. They never had grander ambitions, and they knocked it out of the park with the Sunspear Sanctuary, doing so many amazing things with it that then the community became inspired and started asking for more, to which they responded with the Eye of the North feature. But I don't really think you can hold the Sunspear Sanctuary as an example against the studio. The Sunspear Sanctuary is an example of where the studio went above and beyond and did something really, really good. Just because then that inspired you as to, you know, a deeper feature, I really kind of resent that that's on that list there. Eye of the North too. Eye of the North, when ArenaNet realized in the last Living World season that people liked the idea of a hub that lasted through all Living World episodes, they decided, right, we'll do it properly, and they picked the Eye of the North, a brilliant location in the lore and in terms of Guild Wars 1 fans, and they've done it exactly as they would have expected. I don't think these features had any deeper ambition to be like a player housing thing. I don't think they're examples of features that only got halfway and then were abandoned. I think they're features that were very well realized, and the Eye of the North continues to be. That leads us to the home instance. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different ways they could implement player housing, and I noticed in the comments, you guys have had a ton of discussion about, like, real estate and, you know, actual physical houses out in the world that you would pick from and how they would do that. Let me just say out the gate, I think if ArenaNet did this, and to be clear, I don't think there's a very high chance that End of Dragons really will have player housing. In all honesty, I don't think. It's an interesting topic for discussion, but I don't think it's that likely. But if they did it, this is Guild Wars 2. They're not going to have you auctioning and competing with one another for real estate. It will be done in instances. There will be thousands of houses pancaked on top of one another at the exact same area without a question. They're not going to do anything that creates friction between players, even though that obviously has to happen in terms of market forces and the existence of the trading post. I don't think that they would do this, especially if it's like one of the big key selling point features. There's some of you guys listed horror stories. Apparently Final Fantasy XIV's had a bit of a virtual housing crisis in terms of how hard it is to get a place. You're not gonna see that in Guild Wars 2. So anyone who has this imagination of actual houses out and around in the world, and you can buy them and build on them and stuff, that's not Guild Wars. That's not the way that the game is structured in terms of the separate maps and the mega servers and the overflows and all that stuff. It's not going to be that. And indeed, back to the home instance, it wouldn't surprise me if they put some kind of guild decoration style setup, you know, basically take what they've got from the guild hall system and apply that to your home instance. And they really don't have to do much more than that, and then people can just decorate and maybe remove houses in the Salma district if you like, or remove balconies in Holbrack at the Great Lodge, or whatever it is, to start basically give you deeper customization of your already existing home instance and call that player housing. I'm not sure whether that setup is the most enticing to me. I do like the idea of being able to pick any number of places around the world where I have my house. Maybe I want to have my house somewhere out in the Jade Sea. Maybe, even though this is an End of Dragons feature, or slated as, I want to have my house in Vabi. And, you know, just like when mounts came in with POF and affected everywhere else prior to that, maybe that's what player housing should do as well. If they went with this, it would be really cool if it affected the older places. Maybe my house should be in Sandswept Isles. Maybe it should be on the Blood Tide Coast. Any bit of piece of content that you like, maybe I should be able to dump it there. Fallout 76 had this kind of interesting idea where you can claim a bit of land, and if someone else is in the map that already has their house on that area, you're forced to go to another map. There's a ton of ways that ArenaNet could do it, but I like the idea of being able to pick anywhere I want outside of the home instance. The other idea, by the way, that excites me about player housing is that, because surely they would look at what they did with guild halls and just kind of build upon that. That might mean that guild halls themselves get some kind of update too, just because the housekeeping or improvements, whatever they're bringing to player housing, they want to put in the guild halls. And they've learned so many lessons as well about how guild hall stuff's working right now, in terms of how many decorations that you can have, and the economy of the decorations that's changed dramatically over time. And, you know, I would expect player housing stuff to be a lot cheaper because it's just for individuals now. Speaking of economy, Waffle says, I'd love player housing and be able to decorate my house, but I wouldn't want to spend any gold or gems on it if I don't get anything out of it other than roleplay or decorating. I wonder what we could get out of it that would make it worth spending gold on. Or what other ways to obtain things such as decorations and vendors we could have. Achievements maybe? Some kind of new currency we can spend on housing homes? Well, look, I think the very premise of this message is really warped. You're playing Guild Wars 2. You're spending gold and gems on cosmetics. That's really what it is. You know, it's not like they're going to give you a house that if you upgrade it enough, it will give you some kind of power creep in terms of, you know, more stats or better food or whatever. It's Guild Wars 2. And that's why this is such a good fit as well, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, because this really is just another avenue of cosmetic horizontal progression. I don't really think you'll see much more. But I did want to highlight this comment because you've revealed something to me as well. As far as pitching this to the studio, I think one reason why ArenaNet might be very excited about this is because they could put stuff in the gem store. So now they're selling these, you know, housing related items as well as gliders, as well as mounts and all that kind of stuff. Another prong, another way for them to get money out of you through gems. And I could really see this, again, going back to Fallout 76, they, as far as I can see, Bethesda earn most of their money of microtransactions basically because of the housing system and all the ways in which they've monetized that. And ArenaNet could go for that. I think this is an interesting discussion, though. I know it looks like a no-brainer, but it also feels like it could have been a no-brainer for the Guildhall system. And if you remember before Heart of Thorns, we discussed this a little bit. Will ArenaNet do gem store decorations for the Guildhall? And they never have. They never have. Now, the question there is that kind of some kind of philosophy? Is there some kind of deeper reason for that? That for some reason, guild decorations above all features they decided to keep as a purely in-game prestige kind of thing? Or is it because not enough people interact with it to justify putting that stuff on the gem store. I feel like it's the second of those, and to tell you the truth, they kind of do get money because of Guildhall decorations anyway. As I mentioned, the Guildhall stuff was so premiumly priced that often with the Spud Hall, which is probably got some of the best decorations you'll find in Guild Wars 2, you know, I've ended up spending a lot of my own money just for gems to turn into gold, just to get more decorations. So they kind of got cash anyway without directly selling things. But would they do that for houses? And suddenly I hate the idea. Suddenly the thought that they would add player housing, but all the coolest stuff is just bought on the gem store, it feels pretty lame to me. As long as I can display my in-game prestige stuff, I'm still up for it though. So there we have it, a little discussion on player housing. We can obviously return to this. On the next part, I kind of want to talk about world versus world, guys. So give me your impressions on what you want from End of Dragons as far as world versus world is concerned. Now, I mentioned the idea of a big open ocean sailing world versus world borderland or whatever. What do you guys think on that topic still? Because I still feel really weird whenever I think of the idea of a new borderland. I feel like world versus world is just hate and fume at the mouth at the prospect of it because they didn't receive the desert borderlands so well. And now, you know, there's been so many years since that got added. Are people coming around? I still feel like we should have a third borderland, you know, a unique thing to replace one of those alpine ones. But what would you guys expect of it? What would you feel with that? That's a topic that I'm really interested in right now. And if not a new borderland, what do you think that this expansion could do to really galvanize world versus world? And try to be a little bit more creative than just saying actually add alliances around the same time. Of course, that would help. But what about content stuff for world versus world? What do you think? So thanks, guys, again, for all the enthusiasm. If you want to appear in the footage on the next part, do remember what I said about the guild as we close out. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy, guys.